if an enterprise level solution comes on board and they need, let's say, 2,000 terabytes worth of storage, and a protocol only can provide 1,000 spare terabytes, what happens to the other 1,000? So it's going to help these protocols grow, but it's also not going to cap them out and turn clients away because they can't get their full service. They can essentially split up where they're storing everything. And Vola on the back end will allow for these transactions through Nuvola Drive's front end to be properly handled, and 1,000 terabytes here, 500 terabytes here, and that's all going to be handled on the back end by the Vola network.
What's up, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. I'm your host here, Fareed. As a part of today's update, we're sitting down with Raul de Benedettis to dive into Nuvola, all of their recent progress and updates, as well as the recent launch of a brand new blockchain called Vola. Without any further ado, let me bring up today's guest, Raul. Welcome up. It's been, I think, the third interview now. You need no introduction, man. Welcome back. How are you?
Fareed, it's a pleasure always, man. And I'm excited every time I know I'm doing an interview with you. It's just music to my ears, man. I'm ready for it.
I'm just as excited as you are. So let's just go ahead and just jump right on in here. Again, Nuvola, I think, has done a really great job making a lot of noise in the last couple of months. But for anybody who just isn't aware, who's hearing about you guys for the first time, who's seeing you for the first time on my channel, can you give us a brief overview of what Nuvola is and what you do for the team right now?
Absolutely. So Nuvola at heart is a DePIN aggregator. What that means is we essentially run global scale node operations for different DePIN protocols. Currently, we're in 6 different sectors, to name a few: decentralized cloud storage and computing, telecommunications, internet communications, gaming, oracles, and so on. And we currently have presence in about 12 to 14 countries with server operations, and we host nodes within those servers. And we revenue share those revenues back with our NVL token holders. That's one of the things that Nuvola does. We are currently having 2 apps in development. One is Nuvola Drive, which is a decentralized cloud storage mobile app. If you say, there will be a desktop version as well. Then we are also developing CHub, which is going to be a rewards points commodities marketplace where you could essentially trade airline miles, credit card points, just about anything you get your hands on when it comes to loyalty rewards. And then we also, as of late, have just announced Vola Network, which was essentially the first DePIN aggregator partner chain, I believe, in existence, and definitely a first for Cardano. And it's going to plug and play into Nuvola Drive and CHub, and also have a way into its node operations side of Nuvola, which we will discuss in deep detail today.
Wonderful recap there of Nuvola. It sounds like you've been giving that spiel quite a bit here. Again, you guys have made a pretty big name for yourselves here within Cardano, but it sounds like you guys are getting ready to expand outwards. So that said, let's maybe just dive into Nuvola first before we dive into Vola. I think that's a conversation on its own. But in terms of Nuvola, do you mind breaking down where you guys stand in terms of node operations, partner onboarding? I know you guys have recently partnered up with World Mobile and made some pretty big announcements on that front. And then there's also Cornucopius, OrcFax. I'd love to just get a general update right now on the sort of recent progress and developments, and then we'll jump into Nuvola Drive and then the Vola network.
Absolutely. So we've been pushing steady along with all of our partners, starting with Iagon. We own about 4.2 million IAG tokens. We have quite a few amount of servers globally for them. We're one of their largest operators. We're keeping steady with their operations. We're earning consistently from the staking so far, but Iagon has been teasing a pilot that they've been working on with a big company, which we are very excited to obviously get more information on that. That should help generate more revenues, more usage of their network. And us being one of their larger operators, obviously we're going to see some nice fruits coming out of those seeds we planted quite a long while ago. Then we also have Minutes Network. We expanded recently over the last, I think it was 2 months ago. We acquired more switch nodes and more validation nodes, and they're ramping up their onboarding as we speak. On a recent space, Josh expressed up to 34 million users will be monetized which is going to generate some substantial revenues through those nodes. So we're very excited for that to come online this quarter. And we're steady considering maybe expanding a little more there. Obviously, we have to make sure everything adds up for us, as well as World Mobile. We just recently picked up a nice batch from the Pakistan sale that they have, being that we're one of their partners. We do get some perks there. So that quantity of air nodes that we picked up there will be announced as soon as we get the green light. Cornucopias, I believe we're up to about 130 nodes now for them. 100 are on base and 30 are on Cardano. Don't quote me on that. It might be the opposite, but I do know we have up to 130. Our target there is about 250 total nodes out of the supply that they have. Two, that's 4. Then 5 is Orcfax. We've acquired 4 Orcfax validator nodes, which is 4% of the supply. We are definitely going to stop our acquisition there. We don't want to centralize that system too much. We believe 4%, which is 4 out of 100 total, is a substantial amount. Anything more, I think, kind of be a little damaging as far as our operations being a little too large, being that they are a fixed protocol, right? And then we have Zercher or Zerberus, which we have about 10 of their validator nodes as well for their network. And we're very satisfied with that amount as of now. Developments are progressing with all of our partners. I'm blessed to say I'm getting to a point where I kind of have to look at to see how many partners we have and what we have with who, because we're growing so fast. And I think in total operation, we have over 250 total nodes so far. And I think a big milestone for us is obviously getting to the next 500 mark, then 1,000 and so on. But Vola Network will help us achieve that. And obviously I'll get into more detail with that. But on our node operation aspect of things, I think that's just about everything so far. And like I said, we're very happy with all our partners. They're innovating, they're pushing forward in all their respected industries, and we're right there every step of the way. We're proud to say that we're one of the largest or one of the largest operators for each of them. And we're going to continue growing and expanding with each of them, and more to come, obviously.
Nice. Yeah, definitely a good problem to have here within the blockchain and crypto space, right? There's never too much business. Now, that said, you've discussed the Vola network there, giving us a little bit of a teaser, but we have to discuss Nuvola Drive. And so now that we've got sort of the node piece out of the way, let's talk a little bit more about what Nuvola Drive is. For anybody who maybe just doesn't understand or is hearing about it for the first time, can you break down what the goal of Nuvola Drive is and how Iagon is incorporated into that? And then right after that, we'll jump into Vola Network.
Absolutely. So I'll describe what Nuvola Drive is first for any newcomers, and then I actually want to take us back to April because it's all going to make sense how we got to here with Nuvola Drive and Vola as well. So Nuvola Drive, as it stands today, is a decentralized cloud storage app. What that means is the back end of the storage being provided by Nuvola Drive at the current moment is powered by Iagon. And it's a decentralized protocol that has high privacy, end-to-end encryption. It's decentralized, meaning there's not one single source or entity that controls the data. Unlike some of these bigger centralized entities, you often have a little bit of a conflict where they control and own everything that you're storing and saving up there. So both sides, centralized and decentralized, have their perks and pros and cons, but essentially as of where we stand today, it's a decentralized cloud storage app. Now, being that we discussed what Nuvola Drive is, we have to go back to April with the Nuvola vision that we started with and how it got us to where we are today. When Nuvola was formed by Syed and I, our vision was to always be a DePIN aggregator, right? By definition, an aggregator has multiple sources that it can plug into and bring back to its client the best possible solution of choice, or it gives choices to the client themselves to be able to pick where they want to do business with. When we first started with our global node operations, essentially we were not a DePIN aggregator within those operations. While we were manually aggregating the choosing of the partner and operating the nodes, Nuvola Drive was always the bigger picture of how we can actually become an aggregator. And this is where Vola came to be, and Vola we'll get into as well. But what Nuvola Drive is evolving into now is a true DePIN aggregator of cloud storage. What that means is Iagon was the starting point for us to be able to provide decentralized storage through Iagon. But now Nuvola Drive is evolving that it will offer multiple cloud storage providers, both centralized and decentralized, through our app. And the user can choose if they want to go with Iagon, Filecoin, Google, Dropbox, or all of them at the same time. Essentially puts all the power in the user's hand, and it makes Nuvola a true aggregator where we just present the options and the user is able to nitpick which one they want or all of them, right? I think that was always our vision. And while we started as a node operator, we always knew that our vision was going to be a true DePIN aggregator. So that's where Nuvola Drive essentially is evolving into. Now, how do we do that? We do need a backend engine of sorts. And what better way to do that than essentially with our own partner chain dedicated to DePINs themselves and to help us with this aggregation process. Because it does get to a point where aggregating has to be automated by a system. We can't just sit there and manually choose things. It would never work within the app. Excuse me. So Vola, this is where Vola steps in essentially. And if I could really simplify it for any end user that's not too technical, Vola allows Nuvola Drive to become essentially the Uber Eats of cloud storage, where you have a bunch of options for your cloud storage. And then there's also going to be a dashboard for CPU, GPU compute that is going to provide the same services where someone can plug in and find the best rates going for CPU, GPU, and contribute or essentially rent out, right? But essentially, it allows Nuvola Drive and this Vola dashboard to become the Uber Eats of cloud storage and compute, where we give you all of the options that are available on the market. And now what it does is it creates a very competitive environment for all these protocols because now they're all being showcased on the same platform. So not only do they have to compete for the best technology, but they also have to compete for the best pricing. And there's nothing better. I've heard it in college when I played football my whole life. Competition breeds success, right? If you have no competition, you get stagnant. You're not growing. So putting all these big mega players in the same room on the same platform, you're going to start to see the best ones shine, cream of the crop. But it also allows for many options as well. You asked about what Nuvola Drive is. It's absolutely the front end aspect of the Vola network. What you're seeing through Nuvola Drive is going to be the app, the options, which storage providers you want. At the current moment, you can only store in this one or that one or this one. Through Nuvola Drive, you're going to be able to diversify and back them up into several at the same time. One thing you mentioned earlier was helping protocols, right? If an enterprise level solution comes on board and they need, let's say, 2,000 terabytes worth of storage, and a protocol only can provide 1,000 spare terabytes, what happens to the other 1,000, right? So through Nuvola Drive, you're going to be able to essentially, okay, I can get 1,000 from here, 1,500 from here, 500 from there, and it diversifies the where the data is being stored and all your files. So it's going to help these protocols grow, but it's also not going to cap them out and turn clients away because they can't get their full service. They can essentially split up where they're storing everything. And Vola on the back end will allow for these transactions through Nuvola Drive's front end to be properly handled, and 1,000 terabytes here, 500 terabytes here, and that's all going to be handled on the back end by the Vola network. So essentially, it's the back end engine to Nuvola Drive. The interesting part about Vola, and this I think we waited to kind of speak on this because I wanted the right platform with you, Fareed, is Vola also ties back into our node operations. What Vola as a blockchain is going to do is going to give us the back-end analytics of all of these different protocols, especially on a decentralized aspect that need nodes. And it gives us all this data, and we see how much traffic are these protocols getting, how much usage, right? Like, what are their revenues looking like, essentially? And then we can cherry pick and nitpick and see which ones are the most lucrative and which ones are the most profitable and fastest growing. And then we can set up node operations for those very platforms that we are providing a service for through Nuvola Drive. So not only are we going to be able to monetize transactions through Nuvola Drive for each and every single carrier, but now we can cherry pick and see, okay, well, DePIN XYZ is generating a ton of traffic. Their nodes are actually generating a ton of traffic. Let's allow the Nuvola branch now to set up nodes globally for them as well. And we're going to be able to pick up and monetize also on that traffic outside of Nuvola Drive. So we get the front end monetization from users using Nuvola Drive for all these protocols. And then we get the back end monetization by being a resource provider to those very protocols that we're giving a stage to. So it's a full circle moment for us with Vola, and it allows us to be our true DePIN aggregator nature that we always intended it to be. I know that was a lot. I'm sorry if I talk kind of fast, but I get real passionate about it. And what we're doing is super innovative. There's nothing like it in existence. So it's just an exciting time for us, really.
Yeah, it's completely okay and understood. Just as you've given a lot of details, I've got a lot of questions to follow up with. And so maybe we break it down piece by piece. I think the first is why and the benefits, right? So obviously I can understand this benefits Nuvola, the Vola network, you guys operating this platform, but I'm trying to better understand how does the Vola network benefit a bigger player, for example, like Google, like Dropbox, because again, they're coming from a centralized sort of playing field and they may already have a lot of the market share. So what's in it for a big dog like that to say, hey, I want to jump into the Vola network, operate a node, or take advantage of Nuvola Drive, whatever the case is?
So as far as the centralized entities go, and this is a great question, it's like, why would they choose us? We live in a permissionless environment where we could essentially plug and play. They do have, I believe, enterprise level plans where we can purchase X amount of storage through them and then kind of reshuffle it back in with Vola. We're still kind of really investigating the ins and outs of the centralized players. They're obviously like massive, massive entities. So they're, how do I say it? Like the entry point for them is going to be a little more challenging, but it is very possible. What it does do, though, is it gives enterprise level clients of ours much like more familiar options as they start to investigate the more decentralized solutions such as Iagon, Filecoin, and the many others that are there. So when they see Google, Dropbox, iCloud as a solution through Vola and Nuvola Drive, they'll say, okay, I'll store some in here. The plans are the same. It's completely identical to what they're already used to. But now they're going to get exposure to some of the other solutions, and it's going to be a lot of cross traffic between different entities that essentially would never have customers intertwining, right? A big thing that we're seeing right now with cloud storage is privacy. There's a lot of breaches and hacks and whatnot. So people are naturally having an increased appetite for more private solutions. And Nuvola Drive essentially opens the door by saying, hey, we do have your standard Google enterprises and those centralized players, but we also have other options. Where Google and those other enterprises are going to be more willing to work with us is that we are just extending their customer base to people that might not even consider them, right? Let's say, so I have iCloud, I don't care for Google Drive, but if it's there and it's available and the pricing is right, I might just say, okay, let me spread my files across a couple different providers, right? And that solution gets transferred to everyone else in both centralized and decentralized. So there's a lot of cross traffic between the two sides, and they're going to monetize more people that potentially, it's just more free marketing for them. So why not at that point? We have had a lot of conversations with other decentralized protocols, and they've all had the same reaction. It's like, oh my God, this is free marketing. It's a free platform for me to showcase my protocol. Like, why not? So we're in the works with a lot of more partnerships that are going to be coming on board. But to answer your question, Fareed, it's just a free marketing for all sides involved. Essentially, Vola and Nuvola Drive picks up all the manpower that it would take to market. And we have the beauty of having everyone in one place. So essentially we get exposure to 20, 30, 40 different communities, and they all get exposure to each other. So it kind of starts to snowball. It won't be easy with the centralized solutions, but it's very possible, and we will make it happen. It's just, how do we go about doing it with the path of least resistance?
Right. And again, I think we've seen this with, for example, even just like DEX aggregators, right? So I think from that perspective, it's really good, right? It gives everybody a fair shot. One thing I would love to hear a little bit more is about the actual node operation, right? So on the Vola network, there's going to be nodes very similar to, I assume, something like stake pools on Cardano. So do you mind breaking down, are node operators permissioned? Can anybody jump on the Vola network and operate a node? And then I think that also leads us into like talking about tokenomics, utility, that sort of thing as well. So again, I know there's a lot to unpack there, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about node operation.
Absolutely. All great questions. To start with the node operations for the Vola network, absolutely, they will work like essential like Cardano stake pools, where they're validating the network and helping with the volume transactions and all that. It will be permissionless, so we want as many people as possible to be able to jump in there and provide the power to help Vola essentially drive, right? We are still working out all the fine-combed details as far as the nodes, how they're going to function, the parameters, the metrics, and so on. We're still pretty early with that, but we have white paper documentation that's being put into place properly, because we've gotten some very, very heavy private interest when it comes to Vola. We are very excited. We're progressing forward. We're going to be announcing as things obviously get more contractual and locked in stone. But we're not planning for a bull run. We're planning for Vola to be as long-standing, as decentralized, as resourceful as Cardano has been, right? We want absolute 100% runtime. We want it to be safe, sound, and we want the node operators to be as incentivized as possible to keep running the nodes and run them as long as they want, right? Essentially. So that's that portion of it with the nodes. I think next was the tokenomics you asked about. The Vola tokenomics are going to be drastically different than NVL. They're going to be geared to be a L1 partner chain. So they're going to be heavily incentivized for the node operators and staking. There will be a small portion that is going to be set aside for NVL token holders. Rightfully so, out of respect. We got to Vola because of Nuvola, and we wouldn't be here without them. So those people are going to get that added benefit of that airdrop claim essentially from that. It will go through the staking mechanism. We're not just going to blast out tokens in any way. And then there's going to be a portion that's set aside for private interest, the team, and sustainability for the long term of the protocol itself. I think one thing that really caught people off guard was we're not doing a token raise for Vola. We're going the catalyst route and the private investment route. We're not looking for more money out of the community. We've been extremely resourceful with the money we started with, which wasn't much of anything. Looking back to the growth that we've gotten to today, friendly reminder for those that don't know, our token sale for NVL was undersold. We sold about 56%, which was just about half of our goal. And we've been able to turn that into everything that you see today. So we are very good making every penny stretch. So the Vola token will not have a raise. We're not, like I said, we're not asking for more money. This is a concrete development that we see as a pure addition to the value that Nuvola brings, but from the back end. Just to clarify, there was some confusion. People thought that Vola and the token would be dilutive or essentially taking away from the value of NVL. And that's absolutely not the case at all. What Vola and the Vola token will allow is for more protocols to be handled by Nuvola Drive, which opens the door for more node operations that Nuvola can handle, which if anyone already knows how our node operations run, we're going to make more revenues from those new partnerships that Vola introduces us to. So it's a feeding mechanism that is going to allow also for Nuvola Drive to scale much larger, much faster. And NVL is tied to Nuvola Drive's revenue. So there's a lot of synergy between the two there. As far as the exact tokenomics of Vola, the quantity of the tokens and so on, the splits, We are still working with our lead developer on that, which we just brought on, Devendra. He's our software architect, and he's going to be essentially helping us push with his team, the whole completion of Vola, Nuvola Drive, and so on. But we want to make sure that we're planning ahead for the next 5 to 10 years without any hiccups or anything. I know adjustments will have to made on the go as we grow bigger and bigger. But we're very, very excited about that.
Again, quite a bit there to break down. But for anybody that has any questions, the team has done a really good job of putting together a fully dedicated FAQ section here, really highlighting a lot of the main points that Raul's broken down today, right? So discussing the benefits, discussing the impact, talking about tokenomics. One thing that I have to ask is launch times, right? So before we dive into that, though, I do believe you actually mentioned, let me see if I can get them up here, Devendra. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about, how he's coming along, how he's contributing. Sounds like he's got a lot of experience from Iagon. Again, to hear about not just him, but everybody else that's helping to bring Vola together, right? Because as I can imagine, building a partner chain, this is not going to be a one-man effort. I know at least early on, a lot of people just sort of saw you and Syed as the face and just sort of the entire team at Nuvola. You guys have obviously grown. So I think this would be a good opportunity to break down all the new additions that you guys have added or brought on to make this a reality.
Absolutely. Devendra is a super talented developer. He's had a ton of experience for several years with Iagon, and we all love Iagon very dearly. We've seen what he's done there. He was one of the project leads there with a lot of the developments. So it was kind of like a natural fit when we ended up talking to him. He wasn't with them any longer. So it was kind of like a natural puzzle piece to fall into place for where we were trying to head naturally. And we had a lot of discussion. He obviously has been, loved what we've been doing. We have a great standing reputation with Iagon. Navjit and I spoke about this edition as well, and it was just a blessing, right? From his side as well. So, he comes with a team of his own. He's got about 7 to 10 to 12 different developers and project managers that are going to help with the development of Vola. We understand it is not a small undertaking, and that's why I think a lot of people were always under the misconception that Syed and I are on the background just coding everything and making Nuvola Drive. Like, I'm not a coder developer by any means. Neither is Syed. Syed is a very technical guy. He knows data centers in and out, servers. He knows how to operate the nodes themselves. But when it comes to actual coding and, developing this partner chain, that's going to be Dev and his entire workforce there. We're very, very excited about that. We're actually going to be submitting a Catalyst proposal. The deadline for phase 1 of Vola is about 9 to 11 months. And that is going to include the aggregation into Nuvola Drive, where there's going to be different protocols that we're going to be providing through that interface there. And then obviously, without saying much more, there's going to be phase 2 and phase 3, which are going to really shape the long-term growth of where we see Vola, where we see Nuvola. We've got some very, very big things in development. And another element that Vola is going to present for Nuvola is we're going to be experimenting it as a transaction settlement layer for CHub. CHub itself is going to be a transaction brothel, right? We're anticipating a lot of volume through it, and we need our own dedicated chain to be able to handle that essentially. With the developments that we have coming for that, which I'm super excited about, might be dropping a little teaser this week for the whole community. Anvil and Cash have given us the green light to do so. So we do need a back end to be able to handle that traffic. Cardano is amazing. We're going to get all the security benefits, all the infrastructure benefits that Cardano provides as a partner chain without having to worry about the chain load. You see a lot of these tokens get a lot of volume on certain days. Chain loads like 94, 95%, things can get real slow. And imagine Nuvola Drive clients and CHub clients having transactions really slow or potentially failing because they're not getting executed in time due to the chain load issues. So being on our own chain essentially is going to solve a lot of that, and we get all the benefits that Cardano presents to us. Since it pretty much came online years ago. We're on Cardano. We're here to stay with Cardano. We're going to grow. an element that Vola presents now is that it's going to open the floodgates for all DePINs across many different chains. We've had great conversations with Peak. They are a DePIN L1 protocol. They have about 50 different DePIN protocols that are building on them. And we've had 2 conversations now. They are extremely interested. And we're going to be looking into integrating some of their decentralized cloud into Nuvola Drive. So conversations are ongoing there. Like I said, Vola is a first mover in what it's doing. So it's naturally bringing a lot of interest. And it's a win-win for everybody involved, right? Vola wins by bringing on more clients. The clients that are coming on get free exposure through Nuvola Drive. Nuvola Drive is a revenue share model for NVL holders, which also is going to open us up to node operations for those very clients that we are opening a platform for. So there's a lot of synergy there. There's a lot going on. But yeah, I could talk about this all day, Fareed.
That's a good thing. I'd be scared if you weren't able to talk about it all day. I have to ask, because again, I feel like you briefly did touch on it, but I'd love to clarify. So you mentioned phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3. Sounds like phase 1 is about 9 to 12 months out. Can we expect a mainnet launch with phase 1? Will there be an incentivized test net? I'm just thinking out loud here, right? Because as a node operator for Cardano, I'm like, okay, well, if Vola pops up, why not operate a node there? Especially if I don't need anybody's permission, I can jump in there, provide value, receive value. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the plans for testnet and the mainnet launch. Again, if that's included as a part of phase 1, or if that comes later for phase 2 and phase 3.
Yeah, phase 1 will more than likely include the incentivized testnet. We want to get these validation nodes up and going as soon as possible. The phase 1 will be more of the plug and play into Nuvola Drive for different clients of decentralized cloud storage. Phase 2 will be the dashboard that will start to essentially do the same thing, but for compute, CPU, GPU providers. That's a different mechanism. That whole setup is going to have to be devoted through a desktop dashboard on your computer. We might, investigate into the mobile app aspect of that as well. That's more for my developers to see if that's a possibility. Again, I want to respectfully say that I'm not a developer. But yeah, phase 1 is essentially we will need some back end validators to help with those transactions. So within the 9 to 11 month schedule, we're looking to have that in place to get things kind of rolling and moving. Then phase 2 will be CPU, GPU compute, which is going to be a little more intensive and more development, kind of getting in the weeds with things and really figuring things out. And then phase 3, I cannot speak on at all, but essentially what we're seeing with Nuvola is we're becoming our own independent DePIN protocol. Before, one thing that ate at my soul, and this isn't a stab at any of my partners, but I always heard, well, it sounds to me like you're dependent on your partners for success, which was the cold hard truth, right? At one moment in time before Vola and Nuvola Drive, we were node operators that were at the mercy of other success. And with our new developments, Nuvola Drive, Vola, CHub, and how they're all intertwined, we're turning into our own DePIN protocol where we're going to need validators. We're going to need people operating our nodes. And we're going to essentially determine our own success in that regard, right? It gives us the freedom to breathe a little easier as our partners do their thing and generate their revenues and succeed. But that's, again, just one of the 4 things that we're working on total. We have node operations, Nuvola Drive, CHub, and Vola. And all those things in synergy are going to begin to really make us an independent DePIN protocol, which will all make sense in phase 3 of Vola and when that comes out. So
big teaser there, but it's good to see Nuvola has grown up, right? Nuvola's matured. As you rightfully mentioned, you guys are now a service provider on your own, right? So I think that, again, takes a little bit of pressure off of your shoulders, as you mentioned, to solely rely on the other projects you guys are operating nodes for, and hopefully gives you a new opportunity to sort of tap into like your own niche. And then that becomes, like the sky's the limit, right? Like there's no hard cap on how successful you can make the Vola network, right? Is there anything else that you're thinking that is like really important that you want to share with the community about the Vola network, maybe how they can join the community, what they can do in order to sort of prepare for the launch of this, I think now would be a great time to dive into some of those before we shift gears into the CHub.
Absolutely. I think we've covered just about everything. I do want to reiterate, if anyone wants to get involved as far as the Vola network and the Vola token itself, we're not doing a raise of any sorts. The only immediate way that you can get exposure is going to be through the NVL token. There's going to be a chunk set aside for those holders as well there. The other is essentially a private raise. We're going this route because it just makes the most sense as a business for us at that point. And then lastly, I did want to mention, I think with Vola Network itself, I think people are starting to see us as essentially it's a cloud storage and compute aggregator. But after speaking with Peak and seeing their ecosystem, Vola can become an aggregator for all different DePINs, right? There's decentralized farming where farmers are finding ways to integrate node and technology into how they're doing their work. There's decentralized mapping, like geo mapping, and all these different protocols that are working on how to track, global geographies and things of that nature. Like decentralized DePINs are just, it's any different industry. It's like mind-boggling how many different innovations are coming out of this sector alone. And Vola can essentially be the hub for each and every different industry within DePIN, right? There's agriculture, decentralized cloud storage, there's telecommunications, there's internet connectivity, there's gaming, oracles, there's mapping, the farming aspect that I just mentioned. Anything can be turned into a decentralized infrastructure protocol. It just obviously has to be innovative and lucrative enough and self-sustaining, but there's so many industries that are coming out of the DePIN industry itself that Vola can be at the center of it all, and we become a hub for all of them, where we make a Nuvola Drive app alike for the farming world, and it helps farmers locate their cattle wherever they might be and helps them trade cattle, and we find the best providers of the cat. The possibilities are endless. I'm just spitballing here at this point, which if there's something not like that, I might talk to some people, buy some cows and make it a reality at this point, right? But there's so many opportunities at hand with what we can aggregate within DePIN that right now we're starting with decentralized cloud and compute, but we will eventually find the next big industry and we will help aggregate everyone within that industry through Vola. So super excited about that growth.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's really good to start with something that a lot of people can understand, concepts that they can grasp. And then, as you mentioned, as you mature, sort of dive into other ecosystems, other niches, then you can sort of see, oh, well, we can actually reuse the same exact tech for this other use case or for this other use case, et cetera. And so as you were discussing that, I mean, one thing that came up to me is just content. When I go and upload YouTube videos, they have to store that somewhere. I need to be reassured that, hey, if I'm uploading content, that I can access it, that I can download it, or that people can watch it without necessarily having to hit a centralized server. So I think that's also another opportunity there. And I mean, I'm sure it goes without saying, content is sort of the next big wave, right? And I'm not just talking about crypto content. I mean, you can be a content creator for just about anything. And so I think, again, that's a really big opportunity there with platforms like Microsoft, Amazon, YouTube, all needing that type of infrastructure to store all the content that's flooding in, by the millions, per day. So again, really good stuff there. I'll leave the links to everything that we've discussed so far with respect to Vola Network, Nuvola, Nuvola Drive, all of that good stuff will be left down below. Let's jump into one of the last topics here, which is the CHub Catalyst proposal. So you've sort of already kind of touched on it, right? And we've discussed this in previous interviews. But can you maybe give us an update? It sounds like you guys are close to releasing something. You've mentioned Cash. You've mentioned the team from Anvil. What kind of partnerships are in the works? You've mentioned airlines before. I've been hearing more, not just relative to Nuvola, but just generally speaking about insurance, right? Bringing insurance to Cardano, insurance to blockchain, or introducing insurance type of concepts. So yeah, I just would love to hear about where you guys are, if there's been any changes, and yeah, when can we expect for this to go live?
Yeah, so we've been having a lot of calls. I got to give a big shout out to the Cardano Foundation. Pierre over there has just helped us so much, making connecting the dots. So I really tip my hat to him because I think he grasps the full concept of CHub and what it can be and what it will be, and he's helping us make those real world connections. We will be at the summit in about a week, and we have some meetings set up with some power players in Europe and Dubai as well. Um, but we've done a couple pitches so far to some big players that have connections to some of the biggest sports teams in the world. And immediately the light bulb went off for them when they heard about the loyalty point system and essentially the revenues that can be unlocked by allowing their customer base to trade points amongst each other, right? This could be sports points, airline miles, everything. So we are in the process of all of that. Patent filing has begun, which is super exciting for us as well. That's a little bit of an alpha right there. So, oh man, there's so much I want to say, but I can't. It's like but I think
It's
that's
just you and me here. It's just you and
yeah,
me
yeah,
here. All
right. Just today, we got a nice glimpse of a beautiful dashboard with cash. So it's coming together to see it go from a thought that smacked me out of my sleep like 4 months ago to the connections, the calls we're on, the visuals of the website actually being built. It's almost surreal to see an idea pick up so much momentum, right? But the opportunities are presenting themselves. They're there. People are very, very open to the concept and what it can do. We just have to continue to develop, right? We're still in a phase where they want to see the tangible product first. They want to see a couple of transactions live. So there's a lot of moving pieces. You're going to see an iteration of CHub in what's called a hub, which is Anvil Hub, which is the Cardano collateralization version of CHub, where staked or locked rewards within the Cardano ecosystem are going to be able to be transacted in the same manner that they would be on CHub with real world airline miles and points and all that stuff. So people are going to start to get a teaser of what's to come with CHub on a much smaller scale. Just for those that are new here, CHub came from our Iagon node operations because Iagon, for their DePIN protocol, they pay the node rewards every 12 months. And for us at Nuvola, obviously we run a massive operation. It was like, how do we give our stakers ability to unlock their rewards before the 12 months? Because let's face it, 12 months is a bit of a long stretch for most people. And that's when I had the idea. I was like, what if there's a way for us to give someone the option to collateralize their current rewards? So let's say they've acquired 10,000 ADA worth of Iagon in 6 months, and they need the money for whatever reason. They can collateralize those rewards and then go and sell them on a marketplace-like platform to someone else that's willing to absorb those 10,000 ADA worth of IAG today, knowing that someday down the road, they could be worth 20,000 ADA, right? So it's a bit of a speculative market, but it unlocks the liquidity and it gives people the option to participate. So it's going to be a permissionless thing. And then CHub is the extension of that, but with airline miles, reward points, credit card points, hospitality stay. We've even started discussing in-game currencies with World of Warcraft and all these other different things. The possibilities are absolutely endless, right? And when we were talking to the patent attorneys, we even had a discussion where I was trying to explain to them, and I said, you as an attorney can collateralize 50 of your work hours and then sell them on CHub, and I can come along and say, I'll probably need 50 hours worth of this attorney service. He's selling it actually at a 10, 20% discount. If I buy in bulk, I will absolutely buy those 50 hours and take that off his hands. And now he owes me 50 hours worth of his work. And the light bulb went off for these 3 attorneys that were on call with us. So the possibilities are limitless. There's no, you pick an industry, we find something that within it that is locked in some way, shape, or form, or liquidity can be created from the industry itself and how it functions. So yeah, I wish I could say more. I'm gonna bite my tongue before Cyan and Cash start blowing my phone up to shut up, right? But it's gonna be an explosive end of Q4, both for the Nuvola side, Vola, and CHub. We have so much that's in development. It's exciting, man.
Yeah, I can definitely see it all over your face. I think one thing for me that I'm coming to the realization of with the C Hub is the fact that that is an aggregator in itself as well. Because again, you're taking value from some other ecosystem or some other market and you're bringing it all together and allowing for people to exchange that value amongst themselves, right? And again, one thing I love about this is like those points are as valuable to the next person as they decide, right? Now,
Mhm.
granted, I don't necessarily see a scenario where like I might have airline points and I'm selling them at a profit, but it at least allows for me to, get them off of my hands for cash or something that's more liquid, right? In a hurry or, in a pinch where I maybe wouldn't have that option, or maybe I would just let those points expire. So again, I think there's a lot of value already out there, like you've mentioned, even within gaming, right? You've mentioned airlines. There's loyalty points for just so many different markets, even coffee places, right? And you may want to swap those for some other type of points or just for cash back in that moment. So as you rightfully mentioned, I mean, I think that the opportunities there are endless. The biggest thing for me is trying to see and understand who's going to be sort of the guinea pig, right? Who's going to be the first onboarded outside of a hub, right? For C Hub to really bring that to Web 2. So again, congrats. And I'll be at the summit. Looking forward to hopefully catching up with you there. If you guys do break the announcements and the news, I'll definitely make sure to get a sit down with you there in person, hopefully release that ASAP. Now, that said, Raul, we've gone for about 45 minutes here. There's been a lot to discuss, and I think there's still even more, if I'm being honest. I feel like we sort of scratched the very surface, and obviously as more time goes on, more progress is made. You'll be able to share that here with the viewers. But as we get ready to wrap up, any final or closing thoughts? Again, I know there's been a lot surrounding just Nuvola, your operations there, Nuvola Drive, the Vola Network, CHub. I mean, close us out here. So much going on with Nuvola. How do you sort of, and maybe just even closing out, like, what are you most excited about personally? I think that's a good question to close out with.
Man, there's so many things. As far as you mentioned guinea pigs for C-Hub, uh, there are some massive sports clubs in the world that are extremely open to new technology, especially crypto, because they know what's coming. You're even hearing it being spoken about in like the US election coming up. It's becoming a main topic, right? For decentralized solutions and crypto, right? So there's a couple airlines that are extremely high appetite for crypto innovation. They want to be world leaders in their industries. So they're very open to having test product or pilots, right, that they can start to integrate and see how things go. That we are beginning introductions with, and we're super excited about that. Uh, Man, there's so much to be excited about here, but yeah, I think also out of Rare Evo, which I got to give a shout out to the Rare Evo crew. That event was so much value that we were able to extract out of that. But, you know, JJ Seiler, chief of staff for IO Global, pointed me out of a crowd and he was like, "You're Raul with Nuvola." Next thing I know, I'm getting interviewed by Charles discussing Nuvola, right? They're showing interest. I go back to my booth. We have a private investment banker come up to the booth and say, "I think you have something very special with what you're building. I want to know more." And I won't say too much, but we've been in discussions ever since. It's been 2 months and things are progressing very fast there. So there's some big, heavy interest coming in that is essentially going to lay the road for Nuvola for the next 5 to 10 years with the capital we can raise. We're being extremely smart about it. We're studying other L1s, right? How they were constructed, how they were funded, and how we can protect the long-term health and growth of the holders, the protocol itself. Um, but just seeing that kind of conviction from someone in that industry with all the firepower and connections that he has come to the table and say, "We want in on what you guys are doing." I think was the aha moment that I finally had, right? Because some of it is still kind of like we work so hard, Syed and I. We never have a moment to really sit back and celebrate and how far we've come because we're always thinking, what's the next 10 steps? How do we stay ahead? What's the next direction? What move is next? And a guy like that coming to my table and saying, let me eat with you guys. I can bring value and we can grow for the next decade together was just, okay, let's fucking do this. Excuse my language, but it was that moment for me to really grasp it. And Vola was that final piece that brought it all together with that discussion. It was the missing link. I've said it in my Discord, this is the missing link before we announced it. It came from this really big guy. He said this was the missing link to glue everything together, and this is going to allow you guys to maneuver for years to come in any direction. And that was kind of pretty much what excited them. So the next few months with them are going to be explosive. There's still a lot of work to be done. Obviously, nothing is set in stone as of yet. But just like everything else that Nuvola has touched, we deliver on it. If there's one thing I can say about myself and Syed is we're fucking closers. Something is in the works, we close on it and we make it happen no matter what. So, and Cash as well and Anvil, that's why we brought them on board because they bring that same energy, that same mentality. So big things. And I know people have understood that my reputation, I don't just say things to say things, right? So it's going to be exciting, man. And the roadmap ahead is just, we can't wait to start sharing more as much as we can in the time being, right?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more as time goes on. Definitely make sure to take care of yourself. I know the last week has been a little bit hectic on your end. I will say I love the background. Nice little switch up there, looking fancy. When I first saw it, I thought it was actually AI or like, one of those little generative backgrounds. And then I realized I'm like, that's
No,
actually
this
not.
is real. Yeah, this is a family member's barn, right? It's one of the nicest barns I've ever been to. There's even a goat back here that's just hanging out in the back. So his name is
That is
Brownie. Yeah.
That's a fancy barn, man. I'd love to be those cows and goats living over there. Seems like they're doing extremely well. No, Raul, it's always a pleasure having you on here. Glad we can end off there on a light note. I mean, again, I feel like there's a lot of information here. We're still at the very, very early stages. And you mentioned longevity. You talked about 5-10 years looking out that far. I think as a leader, as a founder, you have to be that visionary. You have to pace yourself. And I think a lot of times in crypto, a lot of people don't plan ahead for the future. So it's really good to hear that you are thinking long term, that you're making sure that, what you're building today is just as useful and provides just as much value now as it will 5, 10, 15 years down the line. And so that said, that will do it here for today's video, diving into quite a bit there from Nuvola, discussing CHub, discussing the Vola network, and getting a lot of details. Again, I think there's still a lot more to dive into. I think we'll wait until we get more news, more announcements, and then we'll get you back on here for an additional interview. For you, the viewer, if you've enjoyed today's interview breaking down everything Nuvola, number one, make sure to smash that thumbs up. Number two, make sure to check out all the official links down below, especially if you have any questions about the Vola network. Read that article, breaks down a lot of good information. And then also make sure to join the official Nuvola Discord. You can reach out to Raul, Syed, a lot of the team members there, and you can also get any assistance that you might need if you want to join by staking, or if you just want to just be a member there and ask general questions about Nuvola and what they're building. Last but not least, if you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave those down below. I'll be monitoring those and making sure to pass those on to Raul. That said, and as always, again, Raul, thank you for joining me. That will do it here for today's video. We'll see you all in the next one. Cheers, everybody. Take care.